if you have allies and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out." Right. Is that the right way?
Before Whoopi even opened her mouth, the room already felt charged. The atmosphere buzzed like a storm waiting to burst long before Rand Paul settled into his chair. It was obvious this wouldn't be a polite chat about policy. Something was about to erupt. You could sense it the moment the cameras blinked on. This wasn't a warm welcome. The panel looked less like friendly hosts and more like critics ready to hit Rand Paul from every angle. Socialism, global conflicts, all of it. Still, Rand showed no nerves. He sat steady, focused, and razor sharp, his expression calm and unreadable. Whoopi launched the first round with quick, cutting remarks meant to throw him off. Rand didn't flinch. He replied evenly, "The truth is, Turkey doesn't want Iran taking control of anything, and Israel keeps defending itself for the same reason." That statement landed with force. People in the audience actually gasped. Then, Sunny Hostin stepped in, fiery and frustrated. She argued that people pay huge taxes yet see barely any benefit, pointing to failures in public schools. But Rand stayed firm, insisting that socialism had pushed Venezuela into collapse.
Well, if you vote for a socialist, you might get socialism.
Come on, don't do that. Maduro is not a socialist. He's a corrupt, murderous thug who is starving his people.
That's not true.
That's not true? Maduro's not a thug and a murderer who's starving his people.
Let's have a conversation here. Chavez was a socialist, and socialism was the economic system of Venezuela.
And they stole. It's kleptocracy. It's not socialism.
But here's the question is, they voted for socialism. They voted, let me finish.
No, I can't let you finish. If you're going to say Maduro's not a murderous thug,
The studio fell completely still as Rand laid out the harsh impact of socialist policies. The quiet felt tense, and people shifted uncomfortably as his words settled in. Rand then stated boldly that even Denmark couldn't support the kind of system Bernie Sanders promotes. Their own prime minister had said flat out, "We're not socialists." The audience stared back at him, stunned. Rand didn't let up. "Workers there pay around 60% in taxes," he continued, "and everyone, rich or poor, faces a 25% sales tax." Each statistic landed like a direct hit. Whoopi's jaw tightened, her expression growing rigid. Then Rand delivered the line that shook the room. "If you choose socialism, you'll end up living under it." The crowd burst into loud applause while Whoopi's eyebrows sank sharply, thrown off by the reaction. Trying to redirect the moment, Ana Navarro jumped in. "You mention Venezuela often in your book," she said seriously. "Do you honestly think Democrats would turn America into Venezuela?" Rand answered without hesitation. Voting for a socialist could pave the way for socialism. The room grew heavy again, almost as if the air had thinned. "No, Whoopi suddenly shouted. "Maduro is not a socialist. He's a violent, corrupt thug." Rand leaned slightly forward. "That's true," he said, staying calm. But Whoopi instantly cut him off. "That's not true. Don't do this to me." Her frustration spilled over as she accused him of trying to score points. Rand stayed steady. "I know people from Venezuela," he replied softly. "They lived through it themselves." Whoopi's anger rose until her face flushed red. Then, with a sharp lift of her hands, she ended the exchange. "We'll be right back." The studio froze. No one moved. No one spoke. The tension hung in the air, chaos unfolding right in front of them, and things weren't finished. During the break, Rand mentioned Syria, explaining calmly why he believed American troops should come home, until Whoopi interrupted yet again.
Don't do this to me. Don't mansplain. I'm a 47-year-old.
The case against socialism, and
I live in Miami. There's tens of thousands of Venezuelan exiles living there. You talk a lot about Venezuela in your new book. I get a lot of political ads from the Republican Party. Donald Trump has tweeted this. Many have tweeted this. If you vote for Democrats, they will turn the United States into Venezuela. Do you think that's a fair statement to make?
Rand didn't flinch, not even for a second. "Do we have to keep sending people to fight endless wars?" he asked firmly. "Why keep putting American kids in danger when there's no clear purpose?" His voice stayed steady, yet every sentence landed with explosive force. "No, Whoopi," he said, raising his tone. "That's not leadership. That's recklessness." Then he pushed even harder. The Iraq War was a failure. Both Obama and Trump knew it. His words cut straight through the tension in the studio. Trying to topple governments doesn't bring peace. It creates chaos. Joy stared in shock, and Sunny folded her arms tightly while Whoopi looked furious. practically shaking. "You can't just walk away like that," she snapped. "And what about our allies?" Rand met her eyes. "Our allies," he repeated. "Turkey is part of the disorder. Let's not act like they're perfect." He kept his tone calm and direct. Before he could continue, Whoopi cut him off again. "We're taking a break," she shouted, her face bright red. The studio froze instantly, the air thick with unease. Behind the scenes, crew members scrambled and the camera jolted off balance. Through it all, Rand stayed steady, sitting quietly while the panel struggled to respond. He had completely dismantled their argument, and they knew it. But the pushback wasn't over. Sunny quickly switched to a new line of attack: taxes. She claimed Rand supported tax cuts that only helped the rich. Rand fired back immediately. "The top 1% pay about 40% of all income taxes," he said. "Meanwhile, the bottom half pay nothing." Gasps filled the room. Sunny looked stunned. "That's not right," she protested. "Donald Trump doesn't pay income tax." Rand didn't budge. "People earning under $50,000 don't pay federal income tax," he replied. "That's not an opinion, it's a fact." He stayed firm, focused, and unshaken.
You have allies, and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out." Right. Is that the right way to do this?
I think the way we look at war is we don't look at
No. Is that the right way to do it?
Answer the question.
Okay.
When we decide whether or not we're sending our young people into harm's way, we should obey the Constitution, which says we should declare war and put them in a war theater. But let me finish.
Okay.
And here's the thing about it, is if you ask these people, Lindsey Graham and the Cheney war and all these warmongers that want to stay at war forever, who are we going to declare war on? They don't know who. We're going to declare war on Turkey, our ally?
Should we ever
Free Syrian
walk
Army,
out
ally?
in the middle? It's like walking out.
We should never be there in the first place.
That's not the question. That's all good.
But see, the left agreed
but
with
we're
me for
in
so many
there.
years. For so many years, the left agreed with me.
I am neither
These
left nor right. I'm just American. I want to know, should we be taking it? Should we be walking out of it?
Whoopi leaned forward, arms crossed, clearly irritated. But Rand Paul didn't budge. "Our tax system is already progressive," he said steadily. "People with lower incomes don't pay federal income taxes anymore." The tension in the studio rose sharply. Sunny, visibly annoyed, shot back, "But we don't have free health care," Rand answered without hesitation. "And our public schools are falling apart," he replied. "Free? Nothing is truly free," he continued. "In Denmark, everyone pays for those so-called free benefits." He explained that workers in Scandinavia shoulder extremely high taxes, roughly 60% in income tax and another 25% in sales tax. "Is that what you want? Because that's the actual cost." The crowd shifted, unsure how to react. Joy looked uncomfortable while Whoopi stared at Rand, realizing their arguments weren't landing. Rand stayed completely composed, responding with calm precision. "Let's stop pretending socialism is a magic solution," he said. "It crushes the middle class and drags nations into financial trouble." Whoopi jumped in again, trying to regain control. "I don't lean left or right," she claimed. "I'm just American." A hush fell over the room until Rand answered quietly. "Well, Whoopi," he said, "if you're just an American, maybe you should be willing to hear things that don't fit your usual narrative. That's what real Americans do." The audience erupted in applause. Whoopi's eyes widened, her expression frozen. For a brief moment, she looked shaken, completely thrown off. The silence that followed said everything. Rand had hit a sensitive spot and everyone sensed it. Trying to recover, Whoopi muttered that she never supported regime change, grasping at control as the moment slipped away. "We don't build freedom by toppling foreign leaders," Rand said.
We talked about his wanting to pull troops out of Syria, and everyone's saying, if we do that, we're abandoning the Kurds. That's not a good idea. And a lot of folks are saying he crossed the line with a bad decision, but you don't say that. Why?
The Turks are also allies. The Free Syrian Army were our allies for 7 years. They're allied with the Turks. The Kurds have been our allies. The Kurds, in all likelihood, are now going to be allies of Assad to try to carve out a place in Syria for themselves. It's a really complicated question. I guess from my perspective, I say any of these people out here, their kids have to go to war. War's not a chess game. People lose their limbs and people die, and I think it's the least we owe to our kids that we're going to send into this war. Why are we going to war and who are we fighting?
But isn't there...
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, if you have allies, and they are working with you and fighting with you, and 24 hours, somebody wakes up and says, "Oh, we're out." Right. Is that the right way to do this?
"All we do is create chaos." His sharp words stirred the audience and people shifted uncomfortably as murmurs grew louder. It was clear some were rethinking their stance. Joy Bihar's frustration boiled over. "So what now?" she demanded. "We just leave? We abandoned everyone, but Rand didn't waver. We never should have gone in to begin with, he replied. You can't walk away from something you never had control over. A scattered but firm applause followed. Whoopi looked tense, her eyes darting between the cameras and the producers. Time was slipping, and she knew it. Then came the most explosive moment of the show. Her voice rose. What about the video of the injuries? We moved past that. The pressure in her tone caused it to crack. The panel started breaking down. Everyone talking over one another, emotions spiraling out of control. The audience froze, unsure where to look. Joy's face turned bright red. Sunny looked stunned and overwhelmed. Whoopi seemed ready to erupt again, and she finally did. As Rand attempted to explain the complexity of the Syrian conflict, Whoopi snapped. We're going to break, she shouted. Her voice boomed across the studio. Even as the music played and the cameras cut away, the tension didn't lift. Viewers could feel it. This wasn't just an awkward TV moment, it was a full-blown clash. Rand Paul had dominated the entire segment, and when the show returned, the tension still hung thick in the air. Whoopi sat stiffly, jaw tight and arms folded, while Rand shifted calmly in his seat as if nothing had happened. Confident, steady, completely in control. He wasn't finished. But the panel looked shaken, not even close to recovering.
But here's the thing is, left and right have agreed in the past that regime change doesn't work. When we got rid of Hussein, we got chaos and more terrorism. When we got rid of Gaddafi, chaos and more terrorism.
But Senator, we're here now, though. But we're here.
Yeah. We're not really here. We got 50 people. We're not
here.
doing
Yeah,
anything.
but frankly, hold on.
Symbolic, and that is why it kept Turkey from invading.
You tell their parents
Isn't that true?
You tell the parents of those 50 kids how great the symbolism was when a suicide bomber blows up all 50
But
kids.
didn't it keep Turkey from invading?
No, I'm not. No.
Gave
You tell
Turkey
their parents.
the green light.
You tell their
Isn't
parents
that
why
true?
they're there.
But
You
isn't
tell-
that true?
You tell their parents why they're
Isn't
there.
it true that Turkey
You
is
tell-
not
How do you feel about
we have? How do you feel about the video that we're seeing of the parents getting slaughtered?
I find the position of pulling out of these wars, that's a popular one, and I am there. There's a difference in having a strategy.
In a last-ditch effort to regain control, Sunny Hostin grabbed at anything she could. She suddenly switched topics and fired, "You support a president who lies and cheats." But Rand didn't even flinch. "This isn't about one person," he replied. "This is about policies and the reality you refuse to face." His voice cut cleanly through the noise. "You're defending a system that keeps repeating the same mistakes," he said, speaking louder than the objections rising from every direction. "How many more arguments? How many broken promises? How many young lives paid for these choices?" The crowd erupted again, this time louder and longer. With every point Rand made, the audience leaned further toward his side. His momentum grew, while Whoopi's patience completely evaporated. Then came the moment that ended the entire showdown. Rand was seconds away from criticizing foreign interventions when Whoopi suddenly stood up. "Enough!" she shouted, slamming her hand on the table. "We're done!" Gasps filled the studio. Joy's eyes went wide. Sunny stared down at her hands. The audience froze, stunned by what they had just witnessed. Producers scrambled as Whoopi stormed off, cameras jerking in confusion. Rand Paul didn't move. He sat quietly, hands folded, steady as stone. No gloating, no smirk, just calm, unbroken confidence. He had forced the lion out of its den. Producers hurried to an emergency commercial break, but the damage was irreversible. Clips spread online within minutes. Hashtags shot across social media. Rand Paul had turned the entire segment into a battleground and walked away untouched.
I just want to ask you this because I'm a gun owner. You know, I don't mind that you know that I have a gun. You can come in my house and look for it. You can get all whatever you need. I don't understand why anyone objects to getting rid of automatic weapons. Automatic weapons, they're not for hunting. They do nothing. They're only there to kill. And you'll notice that a lot of the things that have happened with automatic weapons. When we see that, why don't we say, you know, who really needs to have one other than people who are at war?
Truly automatic weapons we don't have. You know, we banned truly automatic weapons, I think, in 1930.
But we still got a lot of them, right? Come on,
Well,
man.
what we have is not automatic weapons, though we have semi-automatic, so they fire in a fairly fast sequence, but you can't pull the trigger and they come like a machine gun. Those are no longer
But
out.
you know,
When the show returned, Whoopi was gone. Joy tried tossing out a few jokes to ease the tension, but the mood was already shattered. There was no hiding it. Rand had walked in and left their set in pieces. However, the reaction outside the studio was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, viral tweets erupted across the globe. Clips spread like wildfire. Every platform lit up. Even live TV pundits were scrambling to explain what had just unfolded. Millions watched the moment play out in real time. And one thing was undeniable. Rand Paul didn't just hold his ground, he dismantled the argument. Even Whoopi's most loyal fans were stunned. One viewer wrote, "Rand Paul just exposed everything wrong with The View." Another added, "This was the most honest moment on TV in years." Suddenly, this wasn't a casual political segment anymore. It had become a battle over truth, power, and narrative control. One guest refused to play by the panel's usual script. Rand Paul didn't just survive the interview, he flipped the entire panel on its head. He walked into that studio like a lone wolf, and by the end, the whole pack had scattered. Cameras followed him as he calmly exited, capturing the composure of a man who had just conquered one of the toughest tables on daytime television. Behind him, the hosts were left visibly shaken, staring at the cracks in a power dynamic they believed was untouchable. Rand didn't yell, he didn't storm off, he relied on one thing only, the truth, and that's what still sparks debate to this day. Did Rand Paul go too far, or did he finally say what millions have been thinking all along? One thing's certain, this was no ordinary lunchtime segment. This was a broadcast showdown the internet will never forget. If you believe Rand Paul exposed the truth, remember to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. But trust me, this story is far from over.